Okay, so I'm in the middle of trying to film a deer hunting video, and I thought I'd have a little fireside chat. A little fire in my twig stove here. I would have a campfire, but it's really cold, and I don't want to sit out by a campfire by myself tonight. Plus, some assholes burned all my wood at the last deer camp, so they'll laugh when they see this. We burned a lot of firewood. But I wanted to tell you about an experience I had. So I was born in 1967. That's the year that Roger Patterson filmed Bigfoot. And Bigfoot became a big deal for a lot of people, and me included. So I also had an experience with something they called the Big Muddy Monster in Murfreesboro, Illinois, when I was about 6 or 7, something like that. It was more of a smell than it was a sighting or a hearing. But we were out in the screen house. You know, people were playing music, the adults were drinking, and this smell came in. It smelled like rotten eggs, you know, a sulfur smell. And it was awful. It just kind of hit us all at once. Somebody said, "Oh, it's the Big Muddy Monster." So I'm like, "Hey, we got to get out of here. You know, it's a Big Muddy Monster. We can't mess around with this. You know, he's coming here and kill us all. We got to get out of here." And the adults were drinking, and they were like, it's no big deal. We're fine. You know, we're drinking beer, and everything's going to be good. Well, I ran to my house, which was not that far away, but ran there, and then I realized I'm by myself. This is not good at all. So I ran back home, or ran back to the screen house, rather, and then ended up wearing a path back and forth to my house and the screen house. Never talked to the adults into going inside. They stayed out till whenever they decided to stop drinking beer and playing music. But those were good times back in that day. Last spring, I had experience from this exact location I'm sitting in right here. And I was sitting like this, you know, drinking some beer and watching this little fire, and it's making some noise now, so kind of adds to the spookiness aspect of it. But was just sitting here enjoying some music in my little speaker, and heard a thump whistle. And the thump was not like a thump you could, you know, put on the ground and make this kind of a thump. It was like a whoomp. And it, I don't want to say it's like infrasound, but it was almost, you could feel it as much as you heard it. And it was a thump like that, and then a very distinct whistle, like, and it sounded just like a human without the thump. I tried to recreate that thump, and it's not possible. And so I whistled back, because I'm not that smart. And I gotta put out a little fire here. I'll be back for round 2. Okay, so I got the fire under control. I'm not gonna burn the place down. My dad always worried about that. We're gonna burn the place down. Us kids, we never burned the place down. We had big fires. But anyway, so I hear this thump, and then it, and I was drinking, so I whistled back, just trying to match the same sound, the same whistle. And then I thought that was really dumb after I did it, but, you know, wasn't really thinking clearly at the time. So I walked to my car and retrieved my weapon. And not everything, but a lot of things I've seen on YouTube, on different podcasts. I'm pretty much a Bigfoot, I would say, enthusiast. Do I know they exist? No. Do they think there may be an unknown primate roaming the woods of the United States? That's possibly, you know. I'm not going to say I know until I see one with my own eyes. But another thing I did was turn on my porch light that I have down here at my cabin, and it will put out light let's say 15, 20 yards when that's on. I like to sit here by the fire with no lights. I like to sit by a campfire with no lights. It's really soothing and peaceful. And the sound was coming from beyond where I could see. So it was from the darkness, so to speak. So I retrieved my weapon, and, to tell the story, some people believe they can speak English. Some people believe they understand English. I have no idea. I don't have really strong opinions on that one way or the other. But I just said out loud, because I was by myself and I really didn't have a way to embarrass myself with anything but whatever whistled at me. And I just said, if you're going to be cool, I'm going to be cool. But if you want to get mean, I'll get mean too. And kind of a bravado there, but that probably came with the beer muscles. But, yeah, because it was a 38 snub nose. I doubt I would have put much damage on a creature that's as big as what they claim to be. But didn't hear anything else. Didn't have anything else happen except the same thing happened. I would say if I'm pointing, it was this way. And then another one came from that way. Later, the exact same thing. The thump followed by a whistle. So in my mind, trying to, just try to make sense of this, well, it must have been some kind of a bird. But if you spend enough time in the woods, much time as I spend in the woods, you pretty much have heard it all. I've heard bobcats scream. They sound like a lady being murdered. I've heard pretty much every animal down here that belongs here. I've heard, seen, or, experienced, been around. And it was nothing that I'd ever heard before. So was it a Sasquatch? Could have been. Maybe not. If you've ever heard a thump whistle, let me know. When I attended the Sasquatch Festival in Harrisburg, Illinois, a few months back, I talked to the round table of experts or investigators, and I asked them if they'd ever heard a thump whistle, and the guy was like, yeah. And I told him the story, and he was like, well, I wouldn't have whistled back. I'm like, yeah, but I was drinking. So, why not? It sounded like a great idea at the time. So I don't think, if they do exist, I don't think they're out here to harm us. I think they watch us like we watch other animals. You can go down a lot of rabbit holes. Some people think that they're interdimensional beings and can come and go through portals and jump into this area. And if you go down the rabbit hole of Sasquatch and Bigfoot, you'll see a lot of things. I tend to really subscribe to what Les Stroud, Survivor Man, says. When you take out experiences like mine, because I was drinking beer, or people were on drugs, or if they were, very tired and sleepy and hallucinating, you take out all those sightings and experiences, then you're left with a lot more. You're left with people's grandmothers that claim to have seen them 30 years ago. So she's either a liar or she had an experience that she can't explain. So that's kind of how I view it. Is you take out the experiences where people have either been drinking or on drugs or both or anything like that, and you're left with encounters. I do have a really good friend who does Michigan Aboriginal YouTube channel, so a shout out to Jay. Jay Bird's my brother. So we worked together and got to be close friends. He has audio recordings, and that's what he's looking to do, is to collect audio evidence. And he claims to have seen juvenile Sasquatch on his tarp where his tent was set up on. So pretty close, and it was hissing at him and woke him up out of a dead sleep. That's a pretty cool story. I don't know what I would have done in that situation. He yelled and screamed at it because he was wanting to sleep. I think he hadn't slept in a couple days, hadn't had a good night's sleep. And just like, leave me alone, I want to go back to sleep, get out of here. But No video evidence. He does have some video evidence on his channel that I've seen, and he's sent me different things, and it's pretty compelling. I think he's really capturing something. So whether you believe or you don't believe, I don't think anybody knows for sure, and I'm not going to say I'm a knower. And that's what, at the Sasquatch Festival, they're like, well, who traveled the farthest? And somebody traveled from Michigan or something like that. Like, who traveled the second farthest? Well, I traveled from St. Louis. Why are you here? Well, because I'm a believer. And the guy said, well, I'm going to make you a knower. I would like that. I'd like to be a knower. But, let me pull this. The only problem with this, some of these twigs fall out. They're actually pieces of a log that I split with my kindling splitter. But like I said, I don't think I'm ever going to be a knower until I see one. As I continue to do more research, I spent a lot of time in the woods, and I only saw my first bobcat about 45 years ago. So been hunting since I was probably 9 years old, and now I'm, in my late 50s. So it took me that long to see a bobcat. I knew they were there. Heard coyotes all the time. Went a long time before I saw a coyote. So there can be things out there we don't see that maybe we just hear. And a thump whistle, it's kind of hard for me to explain because I don't know anything else that thumps and whistles. So it could have been an entirely audible thing, it could have been a whoop and then a whoosh. But it sounded like somebody really heavy stomped the ground one time. And like I said, I could almost feel it. It was almost like, when you hear drums and you can feel it in your chest. It was that kind of a thing. So if you've ever had a thump whistle experience and you are out in the woods and you're a Bigfoot researcher, let me know. I may have had an encounter. I may have not. So I'm just not sure yet. And I'm waiting to someday see one. When I see one, I'll be a knower. But until then, I'll just be a believer and a hoper. Because I hope there's things out there that we don't know about. Wouldn't that make the world a lot more interesting? It'd be really cool. I don't think it's a big dumb ape or we'd have one in a zoo. Interdimensional beings, that's not my area of expertise. A North American ape that's very, very smart. Gigantopithecus, a holdover. New species sometimes get rediscovered, but they would have to be awful smart to avoid being caught, killed, or captured. If they were a big dumb ape, we'd have one in a zoo. And we do not. So that's my feelings on the subject. Hope you enjoyed our little fireside chat. I may do another one of these if I get bored. If I don't shoot any deer, I've got my camera on my gun, so hopefully I'll get a deer camp video posted. We had deer camp 2 weeks ago and had a great time with my cousin and his brother and his son. My cousin's like my brother because we grew up together, so it was a great time. We had a great time hunting and spending time together. And I get to this time do it by myself because nobody can come down and hunt this time. But I don't mind being alone. It's nice to get away sometimes and be quiet and sit by a campfire and hope you don't hear a squatch. All right, that's all I've got. Thank God for the woods and the water, the deer, the ducks, the turkeys, and the trout. Amen.